spins.
Good guy. I'm so excited that we can finish tuning it. How terrifying was that?
Yeah,
Because inside it was equally as
when
terrifying.
that thing hit in reverse.
Alright guys, well we have a very important topic today. We're actually going to talk about this unit right here. For those of you guys that don't know what this is Slick Rick Apparel 481X Hart's 140mm turbo. It has a 2-speed lockup transmission. It is a 3rd gen Camaro. It's badass. What do you think, David?
It's badass.
So we took it to PRI. We were in the Race Tech booth. This thing's rocking a Race Tech seat. That Mustang right there is rocking 2 Race Tech seats. We're big on safety. So while we were at the Race Tech booth at PRI, a lot of people came up and asked questions about the car, which is, you know, what we're here for. Build badass car. We're here to answer all the questions. I'm very transparent with all the viewers. And I like to call you guys out when I think you're wrong. You guys call me out when you think I'm wrong. So I like to call you guys out when you think I'm wrong and I think you're wrong. Therefore, there's a lot of wrongs and a lot of calling out. Now, some people say I get butthurt, but it's not me being butthurt. It's like me being petty, and I like to prove a point, and I also like to prove people wrong. Ask David. Hit him with the selfie cam.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Don't lie now. Don't lie now. So, I think one of the biggest questions we got while we were there was, man, how much horsepower does it make? We did not take it to the dyno yet. We just got it fired up right before we went to PRI. We literally fired it up, pulled it in the trailer, drove it into the show, drove it out of the show to the trailer, and drove it in the shop. So as you can see, it's got like maybe 10 minutes of just like startup tune on there, verified oil pressure and everything like that, and everything's happy, which it is. I think the largest question out there is, how much power is it going to make? How much power is it going to make? What kind of power do you think it's going to make? Is it going to make any good power? What kind of power is it going to make? My cousin's 350 in his damn station wagon makes 6,000 horsepower, but that thing's only going to make 1,000. Like, okay, guys, let's just break it down here. I'll give you some very basics on how to know what kind of power each car can make, and it's very simple. A lot of the guys that race at this level, they can walk through the pits and they can look at someone's car and kind of gauge how much power it should make. Now, what it should make opposed to what it actually makes is up to a couple different things, like the cam, how the motor's built, the tune-up, the air, the fuel, everything like that can dictate how much power it actually makes. But if you look at it and you see like an LS with a set of like badass LS7 port aftermarket heads and a 118mm turbo, you can generally gauge how much power it's going to make. It's on methanol, you know, all the basic stuff. At this level, mostly everything's on methanol. For example, if this thing, let's just say for conversation reasons, this is a 427-inch LS, aluminum block, aluminum heads, nothing crazy, no canted valve shit, called a Black Sheep Stage 3 with a 98mm turbo. You can look at it and you can go, my cousin's 305 and his pickup truck makes about 270 with those double hump heads. This thing might make a little bit more. Or you can be non-smooth brain human being, right, and look at it and say, damn, 98mm turbo, forced inductions unit, is that like I don't know, maybe that's the gangster, maybe it's the outlaw, I don't know, maybe like somewhere 2600 horsepower that turbo is capable of, and it don't matter what motor you put behind it, that turbo will only make that much power. The motor's just hanging on. So you're like, oh wow, boom, right there, like 2600 horsepower. If you go up to some no prep race and some guy's got a damn VS Racing S400 chassis 88, now I might be losing some of you guys there, but those of you guys that know, we know what I'm talking about. It's a Borg Warner chassis, not like the 98mm I was just talking about was a Garrett GT55 chassis, so they're different builds. The GT55 is a bigger housing, which will allow it to make more horsepower. An S400 chassis is like what our Toter has, which is a very popular turbo. Guys make good power with it. But you walk through the pits of the no prep with like, there's a total of 7 teeth there and 12 brain cells, and you look at it and you're like, damn, that thing's goddamn S488 on it. That thing's probably not going to make 2600 horsepower. That turbo is like maxed out at like 1400 horsepower. It's just not going to make no more. So you can look at it. It don't matter if it's got a damn Hemi behind it. The turbo will not physically move enough air into the motor to make that kind of power. So you see what I'm saying? Turbo applications You're looking at the motor is just the air pump. The turbo will tell you how much power it's going to make. It's how much flow, how much air it can push into there is going to dictate it. You can spec it wrong where you have a turbo that's way too large and you don't get into its efficiency range, or you could spec it wrong the other way where you have an absolutely tiny turbo that is limiting the horsepower of the motor. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can go back into the comment section of my videos at PRI when I'm like, yeah, man, it should make between like 4,000 and 4,500. And you got these smooth brainers over there like, nah, man, I bet that thing only make 2,600 horsepower. Well, we've made 2,600 horsepower with a 98 millimeter GT55 base. This is like an H60 base. This is T7. This thing is massive. So, you smooth brainers, what makes you think that this larger turbo that will obviously flow more air will make the same, maybe less, than the other turbos? Someone please tell me why that is a thing. And all you smooth brainers out there, yeah, I'm talking to you at home looking at this like, oh, I'm not a smooth brainer. You guys are like, it don't make no sense. You don't know what you're talking about. So why are you saying it? I don't understand. So if we look at this thing here, I have one of the greatest arguments ever that just like, I literally comment it back and they're just like, oh, well, my cousin said it won't happen. So this right here is a Hart's 140 millimeter turbo. This turbo has already made north of 4,000 horsepower on the hub dyno. That's to the ground, okay? This is much larger than a 98 millimeter, much larger than a 118 millimeter. Not just the impeller size, but the exhaust wheel size, the housing size. It's T7. It is humongous. It is huge. It is built to move a lot of air. It already made 4,000 horsepower plus on a small block. Why wouldn't it make 4,000 plus horsepower on this? Again, the turbo makes the power. The engine just has to be built to hang on and pump the air. That's all it's doing. So you can base everything off of the turbo. So when I'm like, yeah, man, it should make between 4,000 and 4,500 horsepower, this turbo's already made 4,200 horsepower on like a 500-inch small block. So this is a 570-inch 41X. The cylinder head might flow a little bit better, so maybe it makes another 100 horsepower, 200 horsepower. Boom, right there, you're in like the mid 4,000 horsepower range. But you guys are just like, no, that ain't possible because 1320 said that you can't do it. Like, dude, cut me a break. These comments are just absolutely ridiculous. Like, they have no idea what they're talking about. And you can also look at how much fuel is going into this. You can calculate horsepower off of fuel consumption. This has 2 billet atomizer 700s in every runner, and then it has another 1,400 pounds per hour of fuel in the charge pipe with a provision to put a third one in there. This thing is going to drink a lot of fuel.
You got more fuel in your charge pipe than I do in my motor.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. This thing is a freaking animal. The fuel pump on it, it's a 35 gallon a minute fuel pump.
Jeez.
Like, all this stuff, you can, this is what I'm saying, if you guys like really pay attention when you're looking at builds, whether it's on the internet or in person, you can just look at a couple of the parts and gauge how much power it could make. If you walk up to a car and it's built like this and it's got an Aeromotive red fuel pump on there, it don't matter about any of this stuff, right? It's only going to make whatever 6 gallons a minute will produce horsepower-wise on methanol, which is like 900 to 1,000 horsepower. Like, I know this because I've done it, but for those of you guys that don't know, and you just pull a number out of your buddy's ass next to you, like, it makes no sense. So when I see the comments, they're like, man, that thing, they'll be lucky if they make 2,600 horsepower. We made 2,300 with the Black Sheep on 30 pounds of boost. Cast block, cast head, 427-inch, non-canted valve, LS, GT55, 98 millimeter turbo. At the track, we've made as much as 65 pounds of boost. So don't think that thing is not making 2,700 horsepower. Again, the turbo will support it. The 118 millimeter turbo, which everybody loves, you put a 118 millimeter turbo on a badass small block Ford, that son of a gun will make damn near 3,000, make 2,900 horsepower. The turbo is just badass. They're big ass turbos moving a lot of air. That's why we have this big ass turbo, because we could have put a 118 on this and it wouldn't matter. It'd make like 3,000, 3,100 horsepower because you'd max the turbo out. So I don't know if you guys sitting there taking notes, right? I know the smooth brain people are probably drooling, just looking at their phone or their computer like, the hell's he talking about? All they remember is the damn me talking about their cousin's 305 or their Chevy 350, right? Like, that's the only thing they gathered from this. Is that not fair to say?
Yeah, they're still thinking about the
yeah, you guys are at home sharing brain cells, passing it to the next guy watching it. Like, God, it's ridiculous! You're firing me up! So that's how all of this stuff works, okay? Just so you know. So when you're at the track next time and you see a turbo that is like, I think this is an H60 chassis. I'm not too familiar with like the chassis of this turbo because they're pretty new to drag race and they use them a lot in tractor pull and stuff like that. This turbo is much larger than any of the other turbos out there. The inlet size is much larger. Our charge piping is much larger every way around. Like, it's just bigger. It's going to flow more air. So when the people are like, man, how much horsepower is it going to make? It's going to make like 4,000 plus. It's this turbo on a motor very similar, just small block form, maybe a little bit smaller, has already made like 4,000 plus. So whether we go to the dyno and I don't really run them hard on the dyno. Like, if they go out there and make 30 pounds of boost on the dyno and everything's good and we got a good fuel map, we're ready to go to the track, we go to the track and turn it up because it doesn't benefit me any just to make a big number on the dyno. Like, yeah, it's cool to say, oh, this thing's maxed out, made this much, but it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't win me any races. Like, internet records are cool. Yeah, they make some funny videos, but I like to race and I want to go fast. So this thing, based off of fuel consumption alone, with what we can do with this setup, we'll make really as much power as we can, maxing out the turbo, and we will max it out because we just end up running everything just kind of full tilt with the wastegate pin. So yeah, I mean, I think I covered it pretty well. What do you think? Did I miss anything, David?
Don't think so.
No, I mean, I think we got it pretty good. So just the basics here. I'll break down. I'll talk a little bit slower for the smooth brainers out there. All right, turn the volume up real loud on the phone. Maybe hold it up next to your ear. You don't have to watch this part. I won't even move. I'll just stand here like this so you don't miss nothing. When you're trying to figure out how much horsepower something's going to make, don't just go on YouTube comment section and say 2,500 horsepower when our small block stuff with smaller turbos makes more than that, because that just looks stupid. Look at the size of the turbo. Maybe just like type in Hearts diesel turbos, you know, because that's like what these are, and find it and like look at the efficiency map on it and be like, oh, that thing move a whole lot of air, maybe a little bit more, you know, than 2,500 horsepower. And that's like a good gauge of where you can start your comments at. But really, you can just look at it. 118 millimeter turbo, they're pretty ugly. They all look the same. They're going to make, you know, a lot if they decide to max it out. It's all about what the person behind the keyboard and the laptop and the engine builder and everything all together. It's got to be one big happy family to make that peak horsepower very high. But once you get it all figured out, like the black sheep, you can make some pretty high horsepower, go pretty fast. So yeah, I think there's the basic rundown on it. So it's just some checklists for the smooth brainers again. Look at the turbo, figure out what it is. Use Google, it's your friend. The internet's out there, you can use it for free. So Google that, what turbo it is. You could also look at the fuel pump. What kind of fuel pump is it? Is it a dual spur gear? If it's a top fuel pump, it's got like 5 stages to it. It's probably gonna make like 11,000 horsepower. So like, if you see one with like 12-20 inlets, no, I shouldn't say 12. If you see one with like 2 or 3 -20 inlets, thing's gonna make like 11,000, 12,000 horsepower. So just don't mess with that one. Now, if you see one in there that's got like a -6 inlet, they're probably doing something wrong. It's not gonna go too fast. But like, this is a dual spur gear pump. Makes like 35 gallons a minute. I mean, that's a lot. Look at the injectors. If they got one set of Bosch 210s and they're running methanol, they ain't gonna make no more than like 1,000, maybe 1,100 if they're really pushing it. You know, if they got an S400 chassis turbo and they're like, yeah, man, this thing's making 1,900 horsepower, don't even bother arguing with them because they ain't listening. They're in their own little world. That's just how it is. They ain't making 2,000 with an S400, with S478 cast wheel off VS Racing. They ain't happening. I'm telling you, it's just not happening. The physics don't allow it. So you can just look at the things and kind of piece together. So for the people out there that said that this thing only made 2,600 horsepower, I'm here to tell you, 1, that I don't care. 2, you have a smooth brain. And 3, I think I just did this whole video without having to edit it once.
Yeah.
It's a wrap on today's video. Go to lsnasty.com. Go down in the description below. First link. Get entered to win F450 we're giving away. What else I got to hit on, David? I feel like we educated the people. Whether you got a smooth brain,
we educated the smooth brainers pretty good.
We talked slow for the smooth brainers. I got a little fired up there for a second. This thing looks badass. Oh, I can't wait to see, like, someone's like, oh, the thing barely runs. Like, I can't wait. I'm gonna be sitting in the comment section and I'm just gonna be ready to go. Like, oh, this thing barely runs. Well, all right, go to lsnasty.com. First link in the description below. We'll see you guys tomorrow's upload.